Imagine waking up to a headline that sounds like clickbait but isn't. Earth's magnetic field is reorganizing and the North Magnetic Pole is no longer north. Compasses are drifting fast, pilots are updating charts monthly, and auroras are rolling over cities that have never seen them. Did the planet just hit a disaster switch? Not exactly. A geomagnetic reversal is a real, natural event where Earth's magnetic poles trade places. It's happened hundreds of times in the deep past. It doesn't flip overnight like a light switch. It unfolds over decades to thousands of years. But if the process accelerated within our lifetimes, what would you, airlines, satellites, power grids, wildlife, and everyday tech actually feel? Let's walk through what changes, what breaks, and what calmly adapts. Start with the basics. Earth's magnetic field is generated by the geodynamo, liquid iron alloy moving in the outer core. Most of the field behaves like a tilted bar magnet, but there's always a messy, wavy component riding on top. Over geologic time, the dipole weakens. Higher-order blobs get louder, and the system can wander into a new stable state with the poles swapped. Sometimes the field only excurses. It weakens and the poles sprint toward new latitudes, then snap back, like the Lachamp event around 41,000 years ago. A true reversal takes longer and leaves a clear signature in volcanic rocks and seafloor minerals that record magnetic direction when they cool. So what would a reversal feel like to us? First, you'd notice navigation weirdness. If you use a physical compass, the declination, the angle between magnetic north and true north, would change year by year, then month by month in some regions. Airports quietly rename runways when magnetic headings drift by 10 degrees. In a rapid transition, those updates would become routine. Hikers would rely more on true north map skills and less on red needle to the shed habits. Your phone's compass is software corrected by regional models. Those models would push updates more frequently. Second, the aurora zone would expand. As field lines weaken and tilt, charged particles from the sun can penetrate along different paths. Cities far from today's auroral oval could see regular sky shows during solar storms. Beautiful, yes, but also a hint that more radiation is punching deeper into the upper atmosphere. Third, radiation exposure at high altitudes and high latitudes would tick up during geomagnetic storms. Commercial flights already route around intense polar events to protect crew, passengers, and communications. In a weaker or multipolar field, airlines would reroute more often and keep better dosimetry on crews. For everyday life at ground level, the atmosphere remains your main shield. Background risk rises modestly, not catastrophically. For satellites, it's a bigger story. Satellites live inside and around the Van Allen belts, those donut-shaped particle traps sculpted by the magnetic field. As the field weakens and distorts, the belts shift, swell, and leak. Low Earth orbit satellites see more charging and single-event upsets. Orbits may decay faster thanks to drag changes during solar activity. Operators would respond with radiation-harder components, extra shielding on mission-critical birds, smarter safe mode firmware, and more frequent station keeping. Some constellations might lower duty cycles during storms to reduce bit-flip chaos. Expect a noisier space weather forecast on every mission control screen. Down on the ground, the main risk isn't compasses, it's electric currents quietly induced in long conductors during solar storms. When the magnetic field shakes, geomagnetically induced currents can sneak into power grids, pipelines, and long telecom cables. We already see this in strong storms. A weakened or more chaotic field raises the odds. Utilities would accelerate grid hardening, add series capacitors that block DC-like currents, deploy better storm forecasting and load-shedding playbooks, and install more GIC monitors at substations. Pipelines already fight corrosion by applying a protective voltage. Operators would update those systems because induced currents can skew sensors and speed corrosion rates. Subsea cables are surprisingly robust. Repeaters are isolated and the sea itself conducts, but shore stations and long grounded loops get special attention. What about GPS and timing? Satellites provide position and ultra-precise time that feeds everything from cell networks to stock exchanges. GPS errors spike when the ionosphere gets bubbly during solar storms. In a weaker field, those bubbly moments can become more frequent and push farther from the poles. Mitigation is known. Dual-frequency receivers correct for ionospheric delay. Multi-constellation devices blend GPS with Galileo, GLONASS, and Beidou. Critical infrastructure pairs satellite time with local atomic clocks. There's also a quiet comeback for ELORAN, a low-frequency ground-based timing and navigation system that laughs at space weather. In other words, the tech stack diversifies. Planes, ships, and phones won't go blind. They'll use inertial systems, star trackers on spacecraft, celestial references for hobbyists, and map matching for vehicles. Surveyors will update corrections more often. Aviation will publish more frequent magnetic variation updates to charts. Airports will tweak approach names. It's fussy, not apocalyptic. Wildlife feels the field too. Many migratory birds, sea turtles, salmon, bees, and even some bacteria use magnetoreception, either tiny iron crystals or quantum tricks in proteins, to sense direction or latitude. During a fast shift, their maps go weird. Expect disrupted migration in the short term. Flocks off course, nesting beaches missed, feeding grounds underused, and a temporary rise in wildlife rescue calls along coasts and flyways. Nature is stubborn. Animals blend cues, stars, sun, smells, landmarks, and populations adapt over generations. Conservation managers would help by adjusting protected zones, dimming coastal light during hatching seasons, and using acoustic and scent lures to guide animals back to critical sites while the magnetic backdrop settles. How long does a flip take? Geology says centuries to millennia are normal, and even fast excursions play out over decades. That slow burn is good news. It gives engineers, regulators, and industries time to iterate. Power grids can harden, satellite designs can beef up, aviation procedures can update, wildlife protections can adapt, and the public can learn the difference between scary headlines and practical steps. Let's build a near-term scenario you could live through. Over the next 15 years, observatories measure a continued dip in dipole strength and a growing patchwork of strong and weak regions, especially over places like the South Atlantic, which already has a low field anomaly. Magnetic declination drifts faster. Some regions see the compass swing tens of degrees in a human lifetime. Airports rename more runways. Hikers' guidebooks explain declination like a weather report. Your phone quietly downloads a new world magnetic model every few months instead of every few years. In the 15-40-year band, space weather forecasting becomes as common as hurricane forecasts. Airlines carry storm reroute fuel as standard on polar routes. Satellite operators retire vulnerable birds early and launch radiation-hardened replacements. Grid operators add real-time GIC dashboards and storm mode playbooks that temporarily change transformer loading. Pipelines upgrade cathodic protection controls so they don't chase ghost currents. GPS device makers push dual frequency as the default, and regions resurrect ground-based timing as a belt and suspenders. Through it all, everyday life turns surprisingly beautiful at times. Auroras paint lower latitudes. Amateur radio explodes in popularity because ionospheric conditions are weird and wonderful. Museums host Old Compass vs. New Compass exhibits as declination maps evolve. Schools teach space weather literacy, why the sun sneezes, what the magnetosphere does, and how we cope without drama. Are there worst-case spikes? Yes. A big solar storm during a weakened field is louder, more satellite upsets, more GPS jitter, higher risk of transformer heating in unprepared grids, and higher temporary radiation doses on high-latitude flights. The countermeasures are known: harden critical nodes, design for graceful degradation, expand forecasting, and train operators the way we train for hurricanes and earthquakes. We don't stop living near coasts, we build seawalls and evacuation routes. Space weather is similar: forecast, buffer, reroute, and ride it out. Now, the fun twist. When the flip completes, magnetic north is in Antarctica and magnetic south is near the Arctic. Your compass still works. It just points the other way, and map makers have updated all the lines. The field strength gradually recovers. The Van Allen belts reorganize. Wildlife generations re-encode new habits. Humanity adds, "We lived through a magnetic flip to the list of very normal weird things our species has seen." So what should a curious, practical person do today? 3 small moves. First, know that space weather is a thing. Follow a reputable forecast source the way you'd follow a storm tracker. Second, if your work depends on precise timing or navigation, ask how your systems fail gracefully. Local clocks, multi-constellation GNSS, ELORAN fallback, and storm mode checklists are boring superpowers. Third, enjoy the sky when it dances. A pole reversal isn't the end of the world. It's the planet being a planet, and we're clever enough to live with it. This was Epic Explorations. If you want a deeper dive on the geodynamo, how the world magnetic model gets made, or exactly how airlines, grids, and satellite operators practice storm mode, drop a comment. And if the aurora visits your latitude, send a photo. The poles aren't where they used to be, and that's okay.